Hello, Sally. How's everything going today for you?
Okay, this is great.
Oh my gosh. As you know, I love stories. I love hearing people's stories and sharing their stories. And today we have two special guests with us. We have Mrs. Anna Gabriel Mann and Mr. Anna Gabriel Mann. John David Mann. I'm so excited to interview this couple today because they have written a book called The Go-Giver Marriage. Many of you may have heard of The Go-Giver. It's a series of books that John David Mann has partnered with. Oh, I forgot his name. You'll have to tell us.
Bob Burg.
Bob Burg. And they've written those books, but then John and Anna came together and said, you know what, let's write The Go-Giver Marriage. I met them in a clubhouse room a couple of months ago. I heard them speaking on a stage and I reached out and I said, oh my gosh, I just love what you two are doing. I love your energy, what you're all about. So let's see if we can have you on the show. And here they are today. So Anna is a therapist and John is the husband of a therapist. That's how we were going to introduce you today. It's all true. and excited to just hear their story of, what they've gone through, their journeys through marriage, and how did this book even come to be, The Go-Giver Marriage. And so, Anna, I'm going to start with you. I'd love for you to share with us, what is this book all about and why should I buy it?
This book is about marriage and relationships and why being generous and having a spirit of generosity is something that will not only serve your marriage, but serve you. Because when you give, you also get to receive. And the book really focuses on, in great detail, actually, 5 laws or 5 secrets, if you will, that will lead you to a much happier marriage, even if just you are engaging in these 5 secrets. It will change the tone of your marriage. And the first half of the book is a parable written by my husband, John, who's a multiple New York Times bestseller and who has written over 35 books. And the second half of the book is called The Practice, and that is written by me. And that's really, an opportunity to unpack what the story or what the parable brings to life and unpack it so that it's usable and easy to understand and has actionable steps for how to shift your marriage.
I love that. So it's not just a story. This is about actually making that shift in your marriage. And so you two combined your both your different techniques, your experiences in order to create this book. And so I'd love to know, how did you go from The Go-Giver, John, to The Go-Giver Marriage?
Yeah, so it's both a long story and a short story because the Go-Giver Man, the original Go-Giver, here, I'll do an audio-visual aid here. Original Go-Giver book, this guy came out in 2008, but the first draft came out in 2005. It had a 3-year journey to actually get to the publishers. It was rejected 22 times by different publishers. Took it to New York, over a dozen rejected it. We took it back, rewrote it, took it back, more rejected it. After 22 times, finally a publisher said, I'll publish that. And it's sold 1 million copies since then. So that 23rd publisher was very happy. Yes. But this book came out off, the first draft came off my desktop printer in 2005, plopped on the desk, and Anna picked it up and read it. She's the first reader of the first draft of everything I've ever written. And
were
she
you
read
married at that time?
We were not married yet. We were on the path. We were experiencing a 10-year stretch that we spent together, not getting married, but and we'll talk about that. We decided to postpone actually getting married and give ourselves a little space and time because it was, well, we'll talk about that. But so the book was slated as a business book. It's pigeonholed as a business book, but really it's kind of a life book. It's a book about the principle that when you place your focus, when you divert your focus on, or direct your focus onto the other person in the room, use that spirit of generosity in business transactions, it ends up not only benefiting that person, but yourself. It actually leads to business success. So it's called The Go-Giver, a little story about a powerful business idea. But when the book came out, we started seeing people using it in churches, in schools with their students, in high schools and junior high schools, in family therapy, in all kinds of contexts. And back 2005, when Anna read the first draft, she said, this is going to be big. This is a great book. And this book describes how we are with each other. This would make a great book about marriage. So she had the idea almost 20 years ago of writing a Go-Giver book about marriage, applying the core principle of the Go-Giver to the world of relationships. We call it the Go-Giver marriage, and we do focus on that, but really it is more largely about relationships as a whole, human relationships. So the seed of that book was cast in 2005. And we finally, when the pandemic hit, we finally said, it's time for us to write this book. There'd been 4 other books in the Go-Giver series that had all done really well, but they'd all been more in the business and leadership sphere. And we said, really, it's time to bring it, to make it personal.
I love that. I think it's important there that, having that, because relationships, whether it's marriage or non-marriage, I mean, relationships are relationships. And so I would love to hear from your perspective, Anna. I mean, do you see a difference in platonic relationships as opposed to, the marriage or, couples, whether it's, male, female, female, male, male? Like, do you see a difference in relationships, like how you communicate with people?
Well, these 5 secrets were really designed based on developmental theory, which is, the theory that when you were growing up, the very things that you needed as a child, you still need as an adult. And so the secrets are really designed for one person to be able to give to another in ways that are authentic and whole, and that actually sort of feed the spirit of who you are. And that means that, yes, it can apply anywhere. I tell people that I'm coaching and that I'm working with as clients, I tell them all the time, these are secrets that apply to your children. They apply to your coworkers. They apply to your siblings, your parents. There's not a relationship in the world that couldn't benefit from using these 5 secrets.
That's so beautiful. I love that. Sally, you're up, girl.
Yeah, well, I wanted to just ask you a little bit about the feedback that you are receiving on the books. Is there one of these secrets that's maybe a little bit more popular than the others, or is there something that surprised you that people are saying about the book? I don't know, whichever one you wants to answer.
I'll jump in and say this, that we talk about, it's right there on the subtitle of the book, the 5 secrets to lasting love. And as Anna said, we talk about these 5 secrets, which really aren't secrets. What they really are is they're 5 simple behaviors. There's styles of behavior, manners of behavior that you can execute in your life every day, minutes a day. They're not some dramatic, totally changing your personality thing, but they're so simple yet so powerful. So we went in with that. At the same time, the book also talks about 5 toxic behaviors that will take down a relationship, that will destroy a marriage. And one thing we found, we've been on close to about 100 podcasts. We've done a lot of interviews with people. And one thing we found is a lot of people really respond to these toxic behaviors because they recognize those. They recognize, oh my gosh, yes, I'm doing that. Or yes, I've been doing that before. Or, people recognize these because they're so real and they're so universal. The 5 secrets are, in a sense, mirror images of the 5 toxic behaviors. So we really present both sides of that coin. And the formula or the recipe, the solution to the problem is to just replace the bad habits with the good habits, to recognize the toxic behaviors and learn to turn them on their head and transform them into the 5 secrets, the 5 positive, beneficial behaviors. So yeah, those toxic, destructive habits, that's people really glom on those and say, yeah, say more about that.
Yeah, people on LinkedIn and all different social media platforms have been actually stepping forward and saying, whoa, convicted, I'm guilty of this toxic behavior and now I'm shifting it with this positive secret. And that's been really a revelation for us. As well, we've been hearing from people on social media that say, I'm on the 4th time I've read the book and I'm studying the back of the book, the practice part, because it gives such detailed information about why is this secret powerful? Why do we need it? Why is it important? And also how to practice it, ideas for how to move forward. And also, again, that polar opposite, what's the toxic behavior that we're replacing with this secret? And, the research shows that cognitive behavioral solutions really work. What you think about and what you place your mind on is like what expands. And so when you decide to take on one of these positive behaviors and really use it, and it, again, like John said, it takes minutes a day, it has an enormous impact, not only on how you feel, but how your relationship feels. And the impact is really clearly seen by the other person.
I'm going to give a real life example of something that I did that totally resonates with this, that is not in relation to relationships themselves. Is, I've done over 5,000 live videos. Now, I didn't do those because I wanted to. It's because there was somebody challenged me to do it. So I did. And what I found is that, how oftentimes, like, you see a picture and the first thing you look at is yourself, and then you're looking at what to see bad about yourself. Oh, I didn't like the way my smile was, or whatever. So what I teach people is that when you do videos, if you're going to go watch it, go look for all the things you did well and focus on only those, because the more we focus on the positive things, the negative things, they start to disappear. People are like, you're such a natural on video. No, I'm not. This was learned, and so I became more natural because I focused on the positive things. I'm not worried about how I look, how my mouth is a little crooked. I'm not worried about any of that stuff anymore. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so funny sometimes. This is what I look for now. And so I love it. Yeah, John.
I just want to.
He's jumping out of his seat, literally.
I am jumping out of my seat. I am actually doing that. Yeah, that's so great, Linda. What you just said is so great. First of all, I think it's beautiful advice for making videos. I'm going to remember what you said. That's great. But also, you said, people say you're a natural in video. And no. I learned it. It's trained. Love is like that. We have this idea, like when you fall in love, nobody needs our help falling in love. Everybody knows how to do that. That just kind of happens. Right? You fall in love, and then you think it ought to just stay that way. It ought to just continue. It ought to be a continuous state. We're in love today. Why wouldn't it feel like this romantic bliss? Why wouldn't it still be like this 5 years from now, 10 years from now? But it doesn't. It doesn't, because love isn't actually a state. Love is a practice. We say in the book, love is a verb. Love is something that it might not seem like love should be something that you practice. Like that might sound like, doesn't that make it artificial? No, love is like singing, like playing the cello, like playing tennis, like doing yoga, like doing meditation. It's like prayer. It's like teaching. It's like anything that you do that you want to become good at. Love is a practice. And it's a practice built out of the little things that you do every day. And it's very much like what you just said about getting good on video. Look for the thing that you like. Well, that's what love is like. It's with your partner every day. Search for the things that you love about that person, and then take the opportunity, take the time to tell them, point it out. And what you do is, it's not only nice for them to hear it and they appreciate it and it strengthens your bond, it trains your brain, it trains your neurology to start being aware of the things that you love about the person. Instead of doing what people often slip into automatically and mindlessly, which is to start out of the lack of doing that, start looking for things that bother me, things that annoy me, ways that I can take out my frustration and stress by saying, oh, it's your fault because you left the coffee cup in the sink again.
Toilet seat.
Yeah, you left the toilet seat up. You left the toilet seat down. You left the toilet seat off on the floor. Whatever you did with the toilet seat, you left it in the sink, whatever. We start doing this thing. My mom was a grade school teacher, and she taught 5th grade, and she said it always cracked her up that she would hand out a test or a paper, a quiz, and students would turn it over and look at it, find the one thing they didn't understand, and say, "I don't get it," and give up. Well, that's what we do with our spouse. We hunt for the one thing that we can criticize and zoom in on that. You can train yourself to do the opposite, to do just what you did with video. Zoom in on the thing that you love most about them. Compliment it, praise it, and then go for the next one.
I love this. This is great advice. I see Anna wants to comment. I can tell.
Oh, no, I just couldn't agree more. It's again, it's behavioral. It's cognitive behavioral. And, when you focus on something, it expands. When you practice it, it replaces a negative habit. And replacing negative habits is what this is all about. It's about getting yourself in a place where you are practicing the act of love as a verb. And therefore, it takes action every day. You know, there's little things every day that you can do that will change the tone of your marriage. And they only take minutes a day. So, you know, we feel very strongly that, you know, most marriages can be saved, but people don't have the skills, they don't have the support, they don't have the resources to understand what to do to shift the tone and to change the way they're interacting.
I love that. It's so good. You know, we're talking about the Go-Giver Marriage, a little story about the 5 secrets to lasting love. So you're getting some really great golden nuggets here, of course, but we don't have enough time to share the entire book. You got to go out and get it yourself. So go to gogivermarriage.com. That's gogivermarriage.com and get your copy. We got our copies, Sally and me. We got ours. I got mine, you know, dog-eared here, and so excited to finish it. I'm more than halfway through. So I'm moving into that next phase of it. So Sally, you have another question for our guest here today.
Well, you know, I love the parable of the tree. And so I was just wondering like what those brainstorming sessions were like, trying to come up with all the different ways for that tree to bloom.
I can tell you what they were like. The chair in the corner right behind me back there, they took place in that chair.
Absolutely. The parable is really John's domain. And, you know, it was, you know, we had long talks about the secrets themselves. So we knew what the secrets were before he started writing the story. But, you know, the magic of the fairy tale within the actual parable, there's a fairy tale inside the parable. Mm-hmm. And it's such a sweet little, it's almost like a piece of candy. It's so sweet. And that is really John's genius. And so all the different things that bloomed from the tree, that's John.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that, you know, it was really fun for us because the way it worked out, you know, we had this sort of bifurcated structure where the first half is kind of my domain, storytelling, and the second half is Anna's domain. Although there's storytelling there too, because she brings in a lot of client stories. You know, names are changed and details are protected, and we got permission, but they're real live stories in there. So there's stories throughout the book, but it's like the parable has, as Anna said, a fairy tale within the parable, or a fable wrapped inside the parable. And the stories illustrate these 5 secrets. And then what Anna does in the back half that you're about to read, in the back half, she sort of sits you down and says, okay, the story you just read, here's what it means. Here's how those things here's why those things work. Here's how they work. And here's how you can do them. Here's a step-by-step recipe for how you can implement it in your life. At one point, originally in the manuscript, we were going to call it the 5 habits to lasting love. And we changed habits to secrets because secrets is exciting and you want to know what a secret is, right? But they are really habits. They are behavioral, as Anna said. And that's what she really spells out and gives you in the second half of the book. So that the story and the how to play off each other really nicely. It's like our love letters to each other.
That's awesome. I love that. Now, at the beginning, we were talking about, you know, your marriage, that when you first came up with the idea, Anna came up with the idea before you were married, and then 10 years you weren't married. So I would love to hear that story of, you know, finally making, you know, popping that question, and who popped the question to whom, and, you know, like let's hear the story and how you got to this place where here you are married. For how many years have you been married? Like, give us all the dish.
Dish on it.
We've been together for 25 years, but we met probably 15 years before that at a party. But we never actually said anything, found out each other. I mean, I knew who he was and his name.
I didn't know her name.
He was a speaker at that party, but he didn't know my name. And I didn't think he had even seen me. I just really noticed him because he was the keynote at the party. You know, it was really like a Tony and Maria moment. We both were kind of dazzled, and yet neither one of us knew it. And then fast forward 15, 16 years later, we met at a business conference, and we actually sat next to each other. So it was a real moment where we actually got introduced and got to know one another. And in fact, both of us remembered the other one from years before. And that was kind of a surprise to me. I didn't think he had even noticed me. There were a lot of people in this room. So yeah, it's, we ended up spending 10 years together before we got married. And the reason is that we had come from prior marriages, and there were children. And my child was only 10. And I felt it was really important that there was space for us to both figure out whether or not this was the right move, and also for me to just be really respectful of my child's position in the whole thing. So we waited, and it was a lovely thing. Most people think, oh, how could you possibly wait 10 years? But, we were still a couple, and we were very close and spending a lot of time together. But I think it's really important for couples to wait as long as possible to get married. There's no rush to get to the altar, because I often tell clients, if red flags are going to go down on the field, then you want to see them ahead of the marriage. You don't want to get into the marriage and then find out that this person has a really toxic behavior that they just pull out, whenever they feel like it. And or that they're extremely controlling. And if you spend the time dating, you're going to find out if they're controlling. You're going to find out if they're dismissive. You're going to find out if they are very critical, or if they have mood issues or anger issues. These are all important things to figure out. And it's also important to figure out what do you feel about finances with each other? There's a lot of things to consider ahead of getting married. So those were our reasons for waiting. And it was delicious when we finally got married.
I'd like to add two pieces to that. The first piece is the beginning, which is that when we did finally come together, we actually started out as honest at a business conference. We became fast friends and business colleagues. And I was at that point dazzled by the conversation. I mean, we had lengthy conversations. We formed a really powerful intellectual bond. And it almost sounds like a joke, but it's absolutely true. We had so many common interests, and we had conversations that went on for hours and that went everywhere, that roamed everywhere. And when our friendship fully blossomed into a romance, there was so much underneath it already, which was really nice. Then this 10 years went by, and when you asked the question, who popped the question? I popped the question. And what happened was we were going to a business conference in Hawaii. And I decided this was when I was going to propose. And I asked her daughter at that point, who was no longer 10 years old. She had grown some, but you talk about asking the parents' hand in marriage. I asked her daughter's hand in marriage. And so her daughter and her mom both knew I was going to propose on this trip, but Anna didn't know. And so, yeah, I proposed on my birthday. That was my excuse for taking us to a fancy restaurant and getting on my knees. And then we've been married since then. That was almost 15 years ago. So
that's awesome. I love that. How did that feel, John? Coming to that place, you were more mature in age, than when you first got started, right? And because this morning, as I was getting ready, I was thinking about how there's a lot of fear, especially for young men, in that asking that girl out. And then here you were, even you're a more mature man, you've got all this experience, you've known Anna for years now. And then it came time to ask her hand in marriage. Did you have any nerves or anxiety or anything like that going on?
Yeah, actually not at that moment, but I'll tell you when I had them was when we first fell in love. I wanted to get married right now. It's like, we need to just go in the next month. We got to get married. And Anna was the one who said, let's put the brakes on this. And after a year or two, I began to realize that she was right. And that I started realizing that I had doubts about myself and marriage. I mean, I'd messed up the first time and I didn't really understand how that had happened or why that had happened. I needed the time, let alone the kids, I needed the time to learn more about my own internal landscape and have a clearer understanding. Anna talks about red flags going down the field. I had my own red flags for myself. It's like, how can I even do this marriage thing? Because I didn't do it well before. And I needed to come to a place where I felt sure in myself that this was going to work. Not that she was going to work out, but that I was going to work out. By the time I proposed, by the time we actually planned and said yes and got married, it was like an immovable object. We had like an oak tree with roots that go down to the center of the earth. No doubts, no awkwardness, no nervousness. We were set. But it took some time for me to really know myself well enough to know if this is the right thing to do. It turned out.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I love that. And then Anna, one question for you, like our final question today, because, oh my gosh, this is, we could be on here for hours. I already know that because you guys have so much to offer. But Anna, I'm curious, when he did ask you, your daughter knew, your mother knew, you didn't know, did you have any suspicion at all? And if not, or if so, I mean, what was it like when he actually did propose?
Well, we went to a very beautiful restaurant in Kauai. And so we had kind of dressed up for the evening. And the moment I didn't have a clue, honestly, until they took us out onto the patio. And then they took us to the end of the patio with a beautiful view of the sunset with a screen that made it like a private dining room. And there were beautiful bouquets on every table on the patio, but we had a massive bouquet on our table. And so I was like, what is going on here?
Happen?
What is happening here? And he didn't wait. He didn't even wait for the wine to get delivered. He just got straight on his knees. We hadn't even ordered dinner yet, and proposed. So it was very, very sweet. And he didn't keep me in suspense. But I had that inkling in that moment. It was like, okay, something's up here. What's happening?
So you said yes.
Oh,
obviously.
I had said yes to him 50 times beforehand in the 10 years. I mean, we were very much in love. I mean, I have never even imagined the kind of compatibility that I have with John, that I could even have it. So, I mean, the 10 years that we spent together before we got married were really joyous years. I mean, just incredible time together. Both our careers were growing and changing, and there was a lot going on in our lives, and our kids were just really amazing and rich. And so there was just so much joy in that 10 years. So, we really knew right from the beginning that we were going to be married. But I felt really, the therapist in me said, always good to give yourself space and figure out where you're at. We've both come out of another relationship. It's really important to sort of unwrap what happened. What are you responsible for? What are the things that you need to change and to grow into? I think it's always important to kind of pay attention to your own channel, to understanding what it is that, is your part in every relationship, because we all bring our own emotional material and baggage to every relationship, and then we act it out. So getting aware of that was sort of part of my premise.
This is so good. Oh my gosh. Thank you. I want to thank you both so much for being here today, talking about the Go Giver Marriage. Go get your copy at gogivermarriage.com. It's a really, really great book. And like I said, it's a parable at the beginning and at the end. There's lessons, different activities that you can take to grow in your own marriage. But really importantly, it's like John was mentioning earlier, is like he had to work on himself. Like he didn't really realize that until the time and space had been taken. So really working on ourselves. This book is going to help you to do that. Go get your copy today. And what I would love to ask from both of you, before we end it, like, what is one word that you want our audience to take away? So Anna?
Compassion.
John?
Kindness.
Sally?
Love.
Linda? Oh my gosh, I forgot my word. Shoot. Communication. That's what we're going to walk away with today. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it out. Again, go get your copy of The Go Giver Marriage at gogivermarriage.com. If you want the other series of books, The Go Giver, what's the website for that one, John? For the other books?
thegogiver.com, but they're all at our site also.
Okay, awesome. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Really, really appreciate you, John and Anna, for being here and spending your time with us and helping us to learn about marriage and about relationships. Everybody have a great day.